I said I was going to make a video in regards to some basic stances and footwork because I think that's really important and it's something I neglected for a long time. But look, it becomes more and more important as we move on in belt levels and have to do a little more complicated movements. If we don't have that strong foundation of being able to move and transition from stance to stance or use the proper footwork, it can make things pretty difficult and it can slow things up a little bit. So nothing fancy, but we're just going to go over a handful of basic stances, and they're universal across most martial arts, as well as the footwork. Okay, so again, it's nothing fancy. This is nothing specific to Kushiraki Jiu-Jitsu necessarily. These are just basic fundamental things for most styles of martial arts. But it's very important in Kushiraki Jiu-Jitsu as it is in all the other ones. So the first stance, we all know, is your, just your attention stance. It's when you're in this position, we say lock it up, okay? When we say back or return to the ready from a kata is ba ro, which is the Korean term for it. We still use that, okay? So we're here. When you're going to bow, of course, that's the only time really you're going to put your feet together. You're never going to be standing like this, either in class or in any other situation, hopefully, with your feet together and just stuff like that. It's just for your bow. So it's not really a stance. We have a few different horse stances. Okay, so you have your kind of meditative horse, which is, it's just you're doing whatever. You're working on some things with your hands, but we're just in kind of a relaxed horse. You have your fighting horse, which is a little bit wider, a little more than shoulder width. And then you have your horse stance, which really is only for maybe for some katas or really for training power in the legs. Or if your students are acting up, you can have them sit here for a while. But one thing these all have in common are the structure. So when you're in any kind of horse stance, let's take a fighting horse for example, you need to make sure that the knees are pushed out. Okay, you don't want them in here. It puts pressure in places you don't want them to be. They kind of have to be pushing. I can't show you with this, but the outsides of my feet are pushing outward, and that's where the pressure is. My thighs are well here. Let me show you. They're slightly bent. My back is straight. My tailbone is tucked. Okay, I'm not squatting down. That's your basic horse stance that you use. And this again, a lot of times, if we're just standing here and we're practicing, say blocks, or we want to just practice our reverse punches, or our monkey blocks, things like that. You get in that fighting horse. It's just easier than having to do in a front stance or anything else. Another one, again, a front stance. We went over this in basic kata once, so I'm not going to beat it to death now. But again, the alignment is important, so reference that. Our back stance or our fighting stance, more weight is on the back leg than on the front, okay? And we're in this most of the time when we're doing drills, right? When we go fighting stance, before we start doing our kicks and stuff for the warm-ups of the class, we're in this stance, okay? So it's important that you refer to basic kata 3 for structuring things on this one. Okay. There's a couple others, your cat stance, I talk about a lot, and just saying fighting stance is not that. It just means that your front leg is empty, so all your weight is on your back leg, but it's still at a 45-degree angle, the back leg. And it's just something you might do in preparation for a kick to the groin or something like that. It's not somewhere where you're going to spend a lot of time on. Another stance would be, your kneeling stance, where your knee's not on the ground. And this might be for, doing some kind of finishing move on something, taking somebody down. Again, you want to make sure your knee's not on the ground, and you still want to always, whether you do it up high or down low, you want to make sure that your feet are not in line, ever, ever. You never want them in line, because then, you know, you're off balance. Footwork. Some of the footwork that we'll do, you have a forward shuffle, okay? And all that is whatever you do with your front foot, if you move it 2 inches forward, you move your back foot 2 inches forward right behind it. So you're just here, that's it, okay? And it's just a shuffle, okay? So you just step, 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 okay? Now a step drag would be when you step the front foot and then you slide the back foot in, okay? Rather than stepping, okay? So step, drag, okay? Or push, drag, push, drag. So what the difference between a step drag is the step drag you're doing with your front foot, you step, drag your back foot. But again, you're only going the same distance. So if I step forward 6 inches with my front foot, I drag 6 inches with my back, okay? I don't step forward 6 inches forward and then 2 feet with my back, okay? So step, drag. If I want to do a, push drag, then what I do is I push off with my front leg, take a step with my back leg. So I'm pushing off, and then I'm dragging. Again, same distance, 6 inches, 6 inches. Same thing, okay? So step drag, push drag, okay? Okay, another one would be a step through. We do this quite a bit. So what a step through is you're literally stepping through into your opposite side stance. So right here, whatever your stance was, you're just stepping through. Now, if your foot happens to be closed, open it, open the gate, right, step through, right here. And it is a good idea sometimes to have your foot slightly closed to be able to block some of those groin shots, okay, with the legs. So, again, step through, you're just stepping through. But again, make sure that you're keeping that toe heel line or that gap between your 2 feet. Now there's another one where you can, it's a cross step, but let me make this very clear. I may step through or cross my leg here, but I'm only doing this in order to turn into another stance. So it's like a step through, except I'm not turning as I go. I'm stepping forward, okay? And that may be like an oblique kick, then I'm stepping into my other stance. Okay, so that is a, a cross step. What we do not do, when we move laterally, for example, I see this mistake a lot. When we move laterally, whatever direction you're moving with or in, you need to step with that foot first. Okay, so if I want to move laterally, sideways, to my left, I step my left foot, and see again, I'm only moving the second step as far as I did the first one. So I'm maintaining my stance. Step, 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 step. If I go right, I step with my right. Okay, what I don't do is this. Okay? When I'm stepping sideways, I don't do this. I do this, but I don't do it when I'm stepping sideways. Okay? So I'm not going to do this. All right. Now, when I would do that is if I need to change the angle of my stance. Okay. So if I'm here and my target moves, I may quickly, I'm cross-stepping behind me, but I'm doing it to rotate again, just like when I did the cross-step forward. I'm doing it to switch my stance. Here, I'm stepping back so that I can switch my stance. Okay. So I'm here. Boom, right there. It's just it's a quicker, more stabler way sometimes, okay? So it's something you just practice, take into consideration. Having good footwork is very important. Now there's a lot of other stepping that you can do, a lot of other stepping patterns, you know, that you can add, like a step through with a shuffle step. There's a lot of different things you can do, and you can play with these with your students, but getting a lot of different footwork is really important, and using that when you start going over teaching self-defense concepts and having them implement that footwork is really important. It's to close the gap and do your job in the most quickest and most efficient way without losing your balance or putting yourself in a bad situation. And footwork is really important for that. It also puts you in a position to get your best targeting with your best weapon, which is what we always want, right? Okay, so those are just basic things to work on. Again, nothing fancy. And we'll see you next time.